All right, I'm live. This has been a week. You don't even understand the week that I've had. You see, you don't even know. So before we get started on our topic today, got to bring you up to speed. Good morning, Tony. I see you in the comments. When you get in the comments, if you're watching me live, sign off in the comments so I know that you're here. And remember, put your comments on the screen as I'm talking because I'm going to feature them at the end because I always do. Okay? You don't even understand the week that I've had. So yesterday on Twitter, I got suspended. And first, I couldn't follow people. I don't know what was happening. And then I couldn't reply to any posts. And then it was my media wouldn't upload. And then all of a sudden, boom, your account has been suspended. I said, what? And they didn't tell me why, except you broke some of the Twitter rules. And then they gave me this huge list of very nebulous rules. So anyway, I got my account back yesterday. So I'm thanking God for that. But when they said, you got suspended because you violate the rules, so don't do that again, then they gave me another huge nebulous list. Like aggressively retweeting people, what does that mean? Aggressively following people? I didn't understand. And then there was a whole big thing about impersonation. And I'm like, I have never impersonated anyone. I have never represented myself to be anybody but me. Never, not one time since I've been on Twitter have I ever been anything other than DT2 Comics Chat, me. So they said March 12th was this crackdown on fake accounts or whatever. And I'm like, who have I been impersonating? So anyway, so I filed an appeal. And so I got my account back and I'm so glad. But it was just really bizarre. And you can't correct behavior if no one ever identifies it for you. So like if you don't know what it is that you did wrong, you can't correct it. So I still don't really know what I did to trigger them, but I changed. For those of you that might be going through this, I want to tell you the things that I changed. I changed my bio to read news and commentary about comic books and superhero media, if that's what they were talking about, because there was a lot of talk about misrepresenting yourself. And I'm like, I never misrepresented myself, but anyway. And then also I changed the type of account I had because you can have a fan account or a parody account or a commentary account. So I changed my account type in my settings to commentary. So that's now on, all my tweets or whatever. And then, like I said, I changed my bio to say news and commentary on comic books and superhero media. So maybe that's what they were talking about. I do not know. I really don't. I really don't know. But anyway, I'm back. And so I put everything right there in my profile. So it shouldn't be any more confusion if there was. So that happened. Next thing I want to do is I want to plug my book. We are in a time where you might have to shelter in place. We are in a time where we don't know what's coming next. I wrote a book called 10 Things Every Survivalist Must Know. And it gives you basic stuff that you need to know about survival situations. I personally, if you want to know why I wrote this book, I personally have been through a house fire and a house flood. I've experienced both a house fire and a house flood. So I wrote that book out of my experiences. So I'm not just pulling stuff up out of thin air. So I will put the link for that book underneath in the video box in the video description. But I highly recommend that because this is for beginners. Now, if you're experienced, then this is for beginners. You see it right there. It says beginner's guide. I've had some people get all upset because they're like, well, nothing new. I said, it's a beginner's guide. If you don't know anything about going through fires and going through floods and having to rebuild, because that's what I went through. It's a beginner's guide. So if you're experienced, it's not written at that level. It's written for people that don't know anything about surviving in those situations. Okay. So I highly recommend that you get it in case we have to shelter in place. Okay. So I'm going to put a link for that underneath the description in the video box when I'm done today. Okay. So There are those two things. Next up, we're going to talk about the topic that we have today. Now, you know, my weekly comics chat is about me coming on every Friday and talking about what caught my attention in comic book world for the week. And when I looked at the different stories that hit the airwaves this week, I came up with this right here. I came up with the Wokepocalypse is not over. The Wokepocalypse is not over. What do I mean by that? Well, I've seen person after person after person after person say, woke is dead. No, it's not. No, it's not. Woke is not dead. The state or the stage that woke is in is that it has been finally diagnosed as the plague that it is. That's what's different. It's finally been diagnosed and identified as the plague that it is. But it's not over. It's not over in the slightest. And so what I want to talk about is the fact that it's still in play. It's just, we're just to the point where we are finally acknowledging wokeness is a disease. Wokeness is one of the worst things that ever happened to modern art, modern cinema, modern fan culture. So people are just now becoming more and more aware of that. And we're at the stage where we can say that out loud. Okay, well, we can finally say it out loud because we haven't been able to say it out loud until very, very recently. Because the reason woke got established in our culture at all is because the powers that be listened to a bunch of people that came to the door and told them, you must let us in because your 40, 60, 80 years worth of success is all wrong. So your 40 years of Star Wars and your 60 years of Marvel Comics and your 80 years of Superman, that's all wrong. White men bad, men bad. And if you don't let us in, you're a racist, sexist, bigoted, transphobic, homophobic, misogynist, all that. And so they listened to that, and that's how woke got in. That was a Trojan horse woke used to get in. Once they got in, what has been the net result? They have destroyed every franchise that they touched. Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. Okay, so you've heard me talk about that before. So where we are is we're finally at a point where I can say all that out loud, because all up until this point, you would get shouted down. And I said it even when I got shouted down. And I'm not the only one either. But we're finally at a point where we can call it what it is. But it's not gone yet. It's not dead. If we want this dead and all the way gone, we have to get it all the way out of our culture. We have to get it all the way out of everything it's infected. We have to get it all the way out. Okay? We have to get it all the way out. And if we don't get it all the way out, then it's still going to stay around and fester. And nobody wants it to stay around and fester. Nobody wants woke to continue to extend its tendrils into everything that it touches, even except the handful of people that, I like that comment, Tony. I'm gonna put it on the screen at the end. Even the handful of people that pushed it and the handful of people that still believe in it and the handful of people that come on and defend everything, we have to get this all the way out. And then once we get it out, we're going to have to gatekeep. I'm not the only one that said that. I'm not the first one to say that. If and when we get wokeness all the way out, we're going to have to learn how to gatekeep our hobbies again, or else this is going to happen again. So I'm just saying it out loud. I'm just stating, I'm just putting it out there. And you know, when I put these videos other places, it's going to be all kinds of flack and pushback. I know that, but it's still true anyhow. We got to get it out, but then we got to keep it out. Okay. So I just want to show you some of what's been happening in the news this week, because I want you to understand that the wokepocalypse is not over. We're rightly identifying it and able to say it out loud and call it what it is finally, but it's not gone. It's not over. That's what I need you to understand, okay? Now, when I saw this, I said, what the complete world? Just like everybody. Okay. Now, we don't know if this is true. So once again, grain of salt. Nothing is true until we see it on the screen. Spider-Man brand new day star Zendaya, rumored to lead a new take on The Fugitive. What? So that's what lets us know that the wokepocalypse is still here, that woke is not gone. Because they're still replacing male characters with female characters. They're still replacing white people with people of color. And they're still remaking things that don't need to be remade. They're still remaking things that were classics and beloved by men and women of all ages. And still saying, well, we need to fire that up. We need to reheat that for a modern audience. What? I don't know one person. I personally don't know one person. And if y'all do, tell me in the comments, tell me in the chat. I don't know one person that would want to see a Fugitive remake, period. Because Harrison Ford nailed that movie, just like most everything he does. He nailed it. The Fugitive is an instant classic. Plus, I love all the Chicago scenes. I love all the stuff where they're right downtown. And it's so cool. It's just so cool when you see your hometown. So Harrison Ford nailed this. So I see no reason. I don't know who the audience is for this. Who wants this? If you know somebody that wants this, I want you to tell me in the chat. I can't think of one person that I personally know that will want to see, number one, a remake of The Fugitive because it's fine like it is. Number two, a remake with Zendaya. Why? So anyway, so they're just saying that they're eyeing her for it. So anyway, it doesn't mean anything. I do want to look at this though. The 93 movie received rave reviews and grossed 370 million worldwide. Huge amount at the time. I find that funny, a huge amount at the time. Because now people have been spoiled by billion-dollar movies. That's one of the negative impacts of the MCU. Now everybody thinks that every movie is supposed to be $1 billion. So anyway, you know, she said she'd love to play a villain, evil supervillain vibe, whatever. She's already a villain in Spider-Man. Don't even get me started. But anyway, this is just a rumor. But I cannot imagine any person that wants this to happen. I really don't. But if you know somebody, tell me. Tell me in the comments. So again, my point today, what I'm talking about today, is that the wokepocalypse is not over. Woke is still here. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. Hold on. All right, so let's go on to the next one. I'm going to talk about that too, Tony. I like that. I hadn't planned on talking about that, but I am going to talk about that when I bring comments up. Next up, the Star Trek Academy season finale. Now, I have not watched 1 minute of the show. I couldn't even make it through the trailer. I literally cannot make it through the trial. I have not. And all of my favorite YouTube reviewers that review this show, everybody says the same thing. They say they're going out of their minds watching this show. And then I've seen people on Twitter saying that they're losing their sanity because of this show. So I'm not watching it. But what I wanted to point out is that it's all about emotions. It's all about emotions. Now, one thing I do know about Star Trek Academy, just from watching some of the clips and some of the reviews, is that everything in this show is high school level. Now, I said it this week, I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. When you have people that were bullied in high school, when you have people that were rejected by Regina George, when you have people that didn't get to sit with the plastics, they get very angry and they get very butthurt. They grow up to be Alex Kurtzman. So when you put people like that in power, they're going to do everything they can to tear down the winners, the rich kids, the pretty people, the jocks, whoever they thought told them they weren't cool enough to be with them. So I saw a tweet on Twitter this week that said that narrative that people that were winners in high school are losers as adults is not true. That was written by the losers. That was written by the people that weren't cool enough to hang with them in high school. Okay? I want you to understand that is what Starfleet Academy is. Make no mistake. The plots, the dialogue, the thought process, the conflicts are very, 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 very juvenile. Do you know why they're juvenile? The same reason that the Acolyte was. Leslie Headland, by her own admission, was working through her daddy issues in that show. Working through her childhood issues and her daddy issues through that show. That's why the Acolyte turned out the way it did. This is the same thing. But Starfleet Academy is Alex Kurtzman's way to say, you know, to hate on the fans, to do things on purpose that he knows are going to anger the longtime Star Trek fans. That's what this show is about. It's someone throwing something in your face that they know you love out of spite to get back at the people that hurt them when they were young. See, woke is still here. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Woke is still here. We're just able to say it out loud now without, you know, a whole bunch of people shouting down. Because I used to say that when Batwoman was on TV, I used to call it out every week. And man, the feedback I got, the pushback, the screaming people that came on my timeline on Twitter when I was talking about Batwoman. So we're just at a point now where people are so tired, okay? Where people are so tired of woke, so tired of their favorite franchises being destroyed, so tired of all of this identity politics and all of this juvenile stuff. Star Trek was some of the most intelligent sci-fi writing of all time. And now it's been reduced to gang wars in space and mommy issues and abandonment stuff. And what? So it's not that we didn't have conflict between Spock and Sarek, you know, in the original series. It's not that it didn't have that stuff, but it was intelligent, it was respectful. And here's a big one. It was approached like an adult would approach it, like two grown men talking, not like this. Okay, woke's still here, y'all. It's still here. And we got to get it out. Okay. Next up now, this has been blowing up all week. I did not see this film. I will not see this film, but I did watch some of the reviews because I watched some of my favorite reviewers. And I could, and then when I saw the thumbnails, I was intrigued. What am I talking about? I'm talking about The Bride. This was Frankenstein, Folie à Deux. The plot line of this movie is that Mary Shelley, because of the evil patriarchy, never really got to tell the story she wanted to tell. So she possesses someone in the now and starts trying to tell her stories through them. And then the bride is just what you think she is, a reanimated corpse. And Christian Bale plays Frankenstein. But do you know what that black goo is? It's vomit. And there's this big scene where he's making out with her and he's just, it's just so nasty. And so Maggie Gyllenhaal has been everywhere trying to promote this movie. And it's an insult to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from everything that I saw. But again, Maggie Gyllenhaal said on record that she didn't become a producer or director until maybe the Harvey Weinstein thing happened, maybe the Me Too thing. And so now she has all these feminist stories that she wants to tell. But I mean, this is a movie that nobody had anything good to say about. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody. And she got a $90 million budget. And this movie brought in on its opening weekend maybe $3 million. Wasted Christian Bale. And I mean, just made a mockery of the original story, which is a classic. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Are you kidding me? One of the classic monsters of literature. And this is what she did with it. And she said in her interview that, they're afraid to put women in power. They're afraid to give women in control. They're afraid to give women some real money. This movie does not help her case. Now, if you know anything about the original Bride of Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein is a tragedy. I don't think it's meant to be funny, but it has some really funny moments and some funny memes. Because the funniest thing about the Bride of Frankenstein is when they resurrect that dead corpse woman and she takes one look at Frankenstein and she freaks out and screams. Because of course she would, because who would want to be married to Frankenstein's monster? So I don't know if that was meant to be funny, but it's always been funny to me. But this isn't even on that level. This is just, I can't describe it. See, when things get to a certain level of nasty, then I kind of run out of words because I can't even believe people think that way. Okay, Wokepocalypse is still here. Woke stuff is still here, y'all. It's not gone. We got to get it out. Once we get it out, we got to keep it out. Okay. Now, I know you're going to ask me, how do we do that? I know you're going to say, what's the solution? So let me go through these other stories I want to highlight, and then we'll talk about that, and then I'll read your comments. Okay. So there's that lovely gem. And then, I'm sorry I have to do this, but I do have to do it. Guess who's back in the news? Rachel Zegler herself. Now, before I talk about her, I want to show you something else, except I don't know if I can run this, and I don't like no copyright strikes, because who does? But Brie Larson has been all over the interwebs lately. And what she's been doing is she's been promoting her playing Rosalina in the Nintendo game. All right, I can pull up an article. They're not going to copyright strike me for that. So let me pull that up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But the reason this is significant, okay. Oh yeah, you ought to be able to see that. Best casting they could have done for this movie. Fans love Brie Larson as Rosalina due to her extreme Nintendo knowledge. This is a huge moment for me. I'll watch these. So I want you to look up the video so you can see it, because I don't know if I can play the video without problems. But Brie Larson has been promoting her voice acting in this film. And she's been talking about how grateful she is to be in the Super Mario Galaxy movie and how much she loves these games and how she's been playing them for a long time and how she's basically been fangirling over this and how grateful she is for the opportunity And she's a completely different person. At least she's presenting differently. And that's my point. She went from, I don't need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. Remember that? And all of her madness with Captain Marvel, to being a little bit more meek, a little bit more humble, a little bit more friendly, and a little bit more grateful, because she's trying to get back in the good graces of both Hollywood and the people, because she realized she messed up. She realized that none of the Avengers cast liked her when she had that interview with Chris Hemsworth and Don Cheadle, and she's like, Captain Marvel's stronger than Thor, and he's like, not so much. And she's like, you know, I'm not going to be the next Tom Cruise. I'm going to be the next me. I do my own stuff. Thank you very much. Remember all that? She didn't come all the way off them days. She did not come all the way off that attitude. Now she's trying to be sweet. She's trying to be a fangirl. She's trying to be supportive, and she's trying to be grateful. So this is someone, again, who has learned their lesson, or at least learned how to present better in public, because they realize they messed up. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because we got to get back to Ms. Zegler. Now, I'm showing you this because I want to show you the codes, the code words. I refuse to assimilate for anybody else's comfort. Rachel Zegler is staying true to herself, and there's no contrition, there's no repentance, there's no remorse, there's no, I messed up. What she should be saying is, you know what? I got the opportunity of a lifetime. I got plucked out of obscurity to be in West Side Story by Steven Spielberg himself. And I went from making videos on YouTube to getting into the front of the line. And I am probably the luckiest girl in the world. And so I shouldn't have been bad-mouthing Snow White. Snow White was the movie that built Disney. And I didn't have any business bad-mouthing it. I should have been grateful to be in it. And I would just like the world to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for shooting my mouth off. I'm sorry for insulting half the country. I'm sorry for putting my political views in the promo for a film. I'm sorry for trying to curse half the country. That's the kind of stuff she should be saying, but what is she saying? I refuse to assimilate. So what this article is about her saying that she can't win and she's just a victim because she wasn't Hispanic enough, according to some people, to play Maria in West Side Story, and she wasn't white enough, according to some people, to play Snow White in the Snow White movie. Instead, the article says she's staying true to herself. She showed us who she was, and we believed her. So is she sure that's the right move? That ain't the right move. Let me answer my own question. That's not the right move. That's not the thing to do. But how I know this article is coded, from finding herself at the center of a media furore surrounding her casting as a Disney princess. She caused that flurry. She caused that storm. She caused that furor. She did that. How are you going to skip over? How you just going to leapfrog over the whole cause of all that is no longer 1937, written in 1937, very evidently so. It's not about her love story. The prince was a stalker. Weird. She's dreaming about being the leader she can be. She said all that. She said Snow White scared her as a kid. She didn't ride the ride at Disney World because that scared her too. She's not going to be saved by the prince. Gal Gadot said that. Both of them said that she's not going to be saved by the prince. Go back and watch the interviews. Gal Gadot said that one too. Somehow they skipping over that the media furor was caused by her comments and her attitude. Okay. And so winning over the critics as Evita in the West End. So the good reviews she's gotten has been for theater. She's a theater kid. She probably is going to have to stay there if she wants to have any more kind of roles, because that girl, I mean, talk about getting the golden ticket to the chocolate factory. That girl went from just being another girl on YouTube playing a guitar to being plucked by Steven Spielberg to star in a major production. And then she was in Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods. But no movie that she's been in has been financially successful, which is why nobody understands her attitude. Not Y2K, not Shazam 2: Fury of the Gods, definitely not Snow White. So she doesn't have any blockbusters to her name. So how can you have this kind of attitude? Harrison Ford can have this kind of attitude. He doesn't, but he could. Tom Cruise could have this kind of attitude. He doesn't, but he could. At least they've earned it. This girl does not have a successful movie to her name that she is headlined or even being a side character in. So what is she talking about staying true to herself? The actress Rachel Zegler has already endured all the highs and lows of fame. How long has she been on the scene? 2 or 3 years now, 5 years, whatever. Was this 2026? She ain't been out for more than 5 years. Already endured all the highs and lows of fame, as opposed to maybe industry veterans like Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis would be somebody that endured all the highs and lows of fame. Anne Hathaway, Meryl Streep, okay, Whoopi Goldberg, Viola Davis. Ladies like that would have endured the highs and lows of fame. I would take those statements about them. I told you this article is just coded, and the way they suck up to this girl at Woke is still here. I don't understand why nobody's calling this child out. I don't understand. I don't understand how this bubble she's created around herself, where she didn't do anything wrong. And I don't understand how they're continually feeding that bubble. This girl was in line to become the next it girl. You know, like Millie Bobby Brown is, and Sydney Sweeney is, and, you know, Zendaya is. You know, Hollywood always picks a it girl every couple of years, every generation, always a girl that is suddenly in everything and suddenly everywhere. That has certainly been Zendaya and Sydney Sweeney, and to a lesser extent, Millie Bobby Brown, but they've been it girls, okay? Katie Holmes was an it girl back in the Dawson Creek's days. I mean, there's always been it girls. Jennifer Lawrence was an it girl for a while. Anne Hathaway was an it girl. This girl, Rachel Zegler, all she ever had to do to cash in on her good fortune was 2 words: shut up. And she's still trying to gaslight people, and they're still gaslighting her. I don't know. Woke is still here, y'all. I don't understand. Here she sits down with Frances Hedges to discuss how she is flourishing on her own terms. That's the key word. That's the code phrase. Whenever you see somebody saying something like that, flourishing, she's not flourishing. Where are her hit movies? Where are her Hollywood projects that she's got lined up that she's flourishing? She might be flourishing in the theater. This girl got handed a golden ticket to Hollywood. She's endorsed and supported by Spielberg. How is she flourishing? Where are her hit movies? And on her own terms, whenever you see somebody saying stuff like that, on their own terms, that means I done made up this imaginary world and I'm going to stay in it. I don't understand. But my point, what I'm talking about today, is that woke is still here. Woke is still here, and we got to get it out. Okay? A few more stories I want to show you. Then we'll talk about how to get it out. Then I'll put your comments on the screen. Okay? So I could do a whole thing on this article, but I won't bore you with this article. But I mean, some of the commentary is just mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing. It's one of those things where you have to ask, what's it going to take for this girl to come down to earth? Because I showed you Brie Larson. I showed you that Brie learned her lesson. So this is a situation where you have to ask the question, what is it going to take for this girl to be brought down to earth, to get 2 feet firmly planted on the ground in reality? I don't know. but woke is still here. I do know that. Okay. Next up, you know what's up next. You know what I'm gonna say. Here it is right here. From Cosmic Book News, they're already calling Supergirl a pricey risk, that Warner Brothers, in fact, might be nervous about the Supergirl movie. I have called this out. They said they flagged this as one of the red flags on Warner Brothers 2026 slate. Same outlet is escalating that view, describing the DCU movie as one of the studio's pricey risks. I have called this movie out from the beginning for several reasons. Number one, because Kara is a spin-off fetish character. Every time I say that, people lose their minds and I get all this mad pushback, but that don't mean it ain't true just because you don't like me saying it. Kara is a fetish spin-off character. She always has been. She doesn't have her own anything. She doesn't have her own theme music. She doesn't have her own costume colors. She doesn't have her own origin. She doesn't have her own powers. She doesn't have her own anything. Okay? She's a spin-off character. What's the contrast to that? Somebody like Sue Storm, Aurora Monroe Storm, a Rogue, Jean Grey. Those are not spin-off characters. Those are women that are characters in their own right. Own history, own story, own motivation, own powers, own everything. Okay? That's not who Kara Zor-El is, and that's never who she's been. And that's not who she is now. So there's that. You can talk about Superman in a sense without mentioning Supergirl, but you can't talk about Supergirl without mentioning Superman. That don't tell you nothing. So whenever she shows up, it's in everybody's mind, is Superman going to be there too? And from some of the other articles we've gone over, that answer is yes. Yes, they actually shot more scenes with both Lobo, Jason Momoa, who's a big draw, and Corn Sweat as Superman, because they realize they're going to need those two men to have a greater presence in this movie, for this movie to have any impact at all, because she's not enough as she is. And I'm a fan of Supergirl, so I know all the Supergirl fans are going to be whatever, but I'm a fan of Supergirl. It's just that I understand who and what she is, and I always have. But this movie is being dropped at a time where the superhero fatigue is at an all-time high, and people are being more vocal about it. So there's the fact that she's not a strong enough draw on her own. There's the fact that people are general audiences are kind of burning out on superhero fare. But here's the big one. Here's the big kahuna. Here's the big kahuna right here. They picked Woman of Tomorrow. They picked that version of Kara. No one that doesn't read the comics and no one that hasn't read that comic is going to understand that version of her, because this version of Kara is somewhat unique to that book. And I had a conversation on Twitter this week with someone, and I was trying to explain to them, even if they didn't intend to make Kara look like she's a regular drunk, that's how it comes off. The trailer alone makes it look that way. In the book, because this guy was screaming, it's just an event. She turned 21, she went on her red sun so she could get drunk. Just a one-time event. I get that, but that is not the impression that the trailer is giving. And I already told you what's going to happen. I've said it over and over again, but I'm going to say it again. What's going to happen is Marge from the flower shop and, Betty from the school board is going to say, oh, look, a Supergirl movie, and they're going to bring their daughters that are 10 years old and younger. When they get in there and they see this, they're going to be like, what? And there's going to be a lot of pushback seeing Kara acting this way, because this is not what they're expecting in a Supergirl movie. Just isn't. So that's what's making this a pricey risk, is that now I've said it, other people have said it, I'm going to say it again here. I'm going to say it out loud. Shmun only makes movies for himself. But now that has infected other people. Like Tom Brevoort of Marvel talking about, he would rather make Marvel fans angry because that means they're still invested. Everybody's like, no, it doesn't. That mean they're going to leave and stop spending their money with you. So the next stage of woke, I told you it's still here, is we have people on the highest level of content creation. They only make content for themselves. It's no longer it was never for a superhero audience, but at least when the MCU was in full swing, it was for the general audience, for the normies. All that's gone now, and they just make stuff that they like. And that's not going to be epitomized any more strongly than in the Supergirl movie. They're no longer thinking about audience reaction at all. So we know they never made movies for us comic book fans. We know that because there's not enough of us to get them to the $1 billion mark. You have to have normie appeal. You've heard me say that. But the latest stage of woke is high-level content creators, professional ones working for the big two, working at the highest levels. That's what Maggie Gyllenhaal did with The Bride. She only made a movie that she would want to see. I'm going to say that one more time. What Maggie Gyllenhaal did with The Bride was she made a movie that only she would want to see. That's why she had a $90 million budget. $90 million budget. And it brought in $3 million in opening week because didn't nobody want to see that, Maggie, but you. That's the kind of content that Shmun creates. He creates content that don't nobody want to see but him. So you see when this movie hits. Now, if I'm wrong, I will be the first to admit that I'm wrong. And I will be happy that I'm wrong because I love Supergirl. I always have. But I do not believe this was the way to go. Okay, so we'll see. Next up, this little nugget right here. Aaron Pierre joins DC Studios Superman sequel Man of Tomorrow. The actor is already in the DC fold thanks to his upcoming HBO show Lanterns. So you might say, Dave, how is that woke? The reason that's woke is because there's no mention of Hal. Hal Jordan is hands down the greatest Green Lantern of all time. Everybody that reads comics knows that. Everybody in the comic world itself, from the Owen Guardians to the other Green Lanterns to other races, know that Hal Jordan is not the Green Lantern you want to mess with. Hal Jordan is the greatest Green Lantern of all time. And they keep pushing John Stewart. I love John Stewart. But there's no mention of Hal. There's mention of the show, Lanterns, and there's mention of the Superman actors returning and Brainiac, but no mention of Hal. Okay. And then I also saw something where Isabella Merced said she wanted to explore the relationship between Hawk Girl and John Stewart Green Lantern. Excuse me. That was Shaira. John Stewart fell in love with Shaira, and they actually ended up having a kid. Isabella Merced played Kendra. That's a completely different character. And Kendra started out on Earth 2. So Kendra Sanders is a completely different Hawk Girl than Shaira Hall. And that was the one we met in Justice League. So Isabella Merced talking about she wanted to explore that relationship. I'm like, John Stewart didn't have a relationship with Kendra? But so the reason that this is it is because they're trying so hard to give us old man Hal, broken down Hal, past his prime Hal, washed up Hal, so they can push John Stewart. And why? That's a part of the Wokepocalypse. Because it's not enough to move on or pass the baton. You have to trash that which came before. Okay. Now, people are already picking up on that. People are saying, and I love Superhero Hype, by the way. I love this website. They're already saying that basically the League is coming. You know what's funny? What's funny is when Man of Steel hit, it didn't go as planned. So the very next movie was like Justice League Begins, because they brought in Batman and Wonder Woman. The same thing happened with Superman 2025, but it already had Justice League or Justice Gang in it. So now they're saying with Man of Tomorrow, this is actually going to be a League movie. Okay? And so maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. But I'm saying that Superman, Butt Kid Man, y'all know my name for it, Butt Kid Man, didn't do near about the numbers they thought it was going to do. And so now they're doing the same thing they did before with Henry Cavill Superman. They're trying to make the second movie much more of a team-up movie. But this first movie was already a team-up movie, and it still didn't do well. But again, they're going heavy on Jon Stewart with no mention of Hal. And longtime Green Lantern fans and longtime comic readers know how wrong that is. You can't skip over Hal Jordan in Green Lantern mythology. Okay, a couple more. Then we're going to talk about how to get rid of it. And then I'm going to take your comments, put your comments on the screen. So keep them coming. You know I love your comments. Last one, this right here. Still part of the Wokepocalypse. Avengers Doomsday Report reveals why Sue thinks Dr. Doom is innocent. Rumors circulating online claim Sue Storm may believe Dr. Doom is not fully responsible for his actions in Avengers Doomsday. According to a post from the Marvel Scoop account, My Time to Shine, Sue's perspective could frame Doom differently within the story. The post states, in Avengers Doomsday, Sue believes the witches are the reason Doom behaves the way he does. She thinks they're manipulating him into doing terrible things. So take that with a grain of salt. But if you actually know anything about Dr. Doom, you know that his mom was into that in the first place. So that's not a big leap. And then, but the reason this is woke is because they're trying to say that he's not a villain, he's just misunderstood, or he's just hurting. How many times have we seen them try to completely erase villains from being villainy and make them hurt characters, make them wounded, make them, you know, we need to feel sorry for them, we need to have compassion. And they're not really bad people. They are, in fact, the good guys. Are you sick of that? Raise your hand if you're sick of that. Are you sick of that? All that is part of the wokepocalypse. Yes, it is. Woke is still here. Okay? So now I'm going to talk about, then I'm going to put your comments on the screen. And now I'm going to talk about, see, I just hate that picture. The picture behind me, first picture of lanterns, I hated it ever since I saw it because look at how he looks disheveled. He looks like he just went on a bender. He looks like he's still kind of wasted. He looks like he gets drunk on a regular basis. He looks unshaven. Just not a good look, not a good light. This is washed up Green Lantern. That's the trope they're going with, and I can't stand that. We've never seen Hal in his prime in live action, except for the Ryan Reynolds movie, and that didn't take it seriously. How do we get rid of it? What you want to happen, and what everybody keeps saying, is that they need to fire all these people. Fire all the people that brought woke in, and fire all these writers, and fire all these directors, and fire anybody. You know, there's been calls to fire Mark Ruffalo because we're tired of him. We don't care if he ever plays Hulk again. You know, so there's been all these calls to fire these various and sundry people. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. That would be nice, but if you think about it, I can't imagine the conditions where they could justify specifically going through their ranks, because we're talking about across the board now. I'm not just talking about the DCU or the MCU. I'm talking about across the board. Because think about, have you ever seen the writer's room for Star Wars? Have you ever seen their board, their whiteboard, about how they said they wanted dinosaurs and everything was about feelings? And all the people that Kathleen Kennedy brought in, she's the one that said the Force was female. So if we were going to fire all the people that have been hired in the last 10 to 12 years, I mean, it would be there has already been a massive purge in Hollywood. I know that's happened and I know it's happening. I'm just saying, are they really firing the very people that keep pushing the woke agenda? They say they are. They say they are, but I don't believe it. I won't believe it till I see it. They say they are, but I mean, we're talking about Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Star Trek, Jurassic Park, Willow, Lord of the Rings. I mean, MCU, DCU. I mean, Wheel of Time. What property that we love as a Doctor Who, what property that we love hasn't been infected by wokeness? Do you understand the sheer amount of people they would have to fire to get it out that way? And then there's going to be some wrongful firing lawsuits if they do it that way. There's going to be people screaming discrimination and you fired me because of my identity politics, my demographics, my whatever, and you can't do that. And that's going to be a legal and a financial nightmare, which is why I don't think they're going to do it. That's what we might want them to do, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. I'm sad to say. What I think is going to happen, and let me hasten to say up front, I don't want this to happen, but I think it's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is that the property values are going to be reduced to little or nothing, and they're going to be sold for pennies on the dollar for all those that still have copyright protection, because Batman and Superman are going to be up out from underneath copyright protection real soon. Now, what people don't understand is that it's actually the books that are in public domain, not the full character, especially not Superman, because Superman's world was piecemeal together. So was Batman's world. So all of the things that came in Superman's world, Kryptonite, Fortress of Solitude, all that, they weren't there at the beginning. So just the comic will be public domain, not all the elements of the story world. But what I think is going to happen is that the properties are going to become so worthless because the movies and TV shows become so worthless, they're going to be sold off for pennies on the dollar. Somebody's going to pick them up, and it's probably going to be someone that doesn't know what to do with them. The same way that they spent $10 million on MySpace. Can you believe that? MySpace is still around, by the way, if you didn't know that. If I'm not mistaken, I think Justin Timberlake bought it. I don't know if he still owns it. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Timberlake that bought it, but he paid $10 million for it. Now, there it is. There's MySpace. It's still going. It's still featuring artists and anything, but does anybody still use MySpace? Do people even think about it? People are on Snapchat. People are on Instagram. Young people in particular are always trying to find the latest thing. The young people don't want to be anywhere where they think old people are. And by old, they mean 30 and up, maybe even 25. So my point is that it's possible for something that was once, the bomb, that was once the big thing, that was once the biggest fish in the pond, to be reduced to nothingness, to the point where it has no more cultural relevance. Like I just showed you, MySpace still exists. Do we think of it as a social networking site? Do we think of MySpace as anything? Now, does MySpace even come up in conversation? But it's still there. That wasn't my question. My question was, Does it come up in conversation? All of the people on MySpace are people you've never heard of, people that are just starting out, or people that are trying to get their foot in the door, but there's no big names on MySpace. It's just people that are trying to break through. Do you see that? So my question is, how relevant is MySpace in today's times? And the reason I brought that up and the reason I'm saying that is because that's what I think is going to happen to all of these properties. I think they're going to die a painful death in being so irrelevant, they lose most of their commercial value. I personally think that Indiana Jones is already there. I think Wheel of Time is already there. I don't think Lord of the Rings is there. And I know Star Trek isn't there because they could bring Star Trek back with just a good show, with just a good movie. We just forget like Kurtzman Trek ever happened and put it in another universe or say it was Q all the time. Somebody said that to me this week on Twitter. Just say it was Q messing around. Out of all the properties that need to be rescued, Star Trek is the easiest because it's got mirror universe and timey-wimey time travel. It's got multiple dimensions. Kelvin time. It's got all of that built in. So what I think is going to happen, that woke is going to kill this stuff to the point where it's so irrelevant until it's commercially worthless. And then it gets sold off for pennies on the dollar. And then it's probably going to be sold off to someone that doesn't know what to do with it. Because why would you pay $10 million for MySpace at any point after it was in its heyday? It got replaced by Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's where people are now. I personally am surprised that Facebook has lasted as long as it has. I thought it was going to have a shorter shelf life. But people love Instagram. So my point being is that's what I think is going to happen. What we want to happen to purge the wokeness is to fire all the people that brought it in. That would be such a massive layoff, and that's going to be lawsuits galore. And I don't think they're going to do it. What's going to happen is they're going to squeeze the life out of everything that we once loved to the point where nobody cares about it anymore. And then those properties are going to be sold for pennies on the dollar. That's how I think woke is going to end. Not because we get it out, but because it kills everything that we cared about. Now, I will repeat, that's not what I want to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I will say so. I'll say, wow, so-and-so bought that, or wow, that movie was really good, or wow, we're so back, and we're actually back. Because I keep hearing people say that we're back. We ain't never been back. The MCU not coming back. Neither Star Wars. Star Wars not coming back. You know how I know Star Wars is not coming back? Because when I look at it, it makes me tired. I still love the Lucasfilms. Empire is still my favorite and the best Star Wars of all time. But when I look at Star Wars, not looking, but I mean visually looking at it. I don't mean watching the content. I mean seeing a picture of Rey. I mean seeing the pictures of Star Wars Starfighter with Gosling. Looking at it makes me tired. I'm not exaggerating. It's not hyperbole. Looking at it makes me tired. All the promo pictures for the Acolyte. I'm to that point with Star Wars. And Star Wars is not coming back because I know I can't be the only person that feels that way. I cannot. I think that's what's going to happen across the board. That people are going to get so disgusted with the wokeification of these properties until they become worthless. Because I don't want to look at it. As soon as I saw the promo pictures, the Starfleet Academy, I was like, I was like, nope. Okay. So now let me take your comments. You've been giving me some good comments as always. Okay, I wonder if that is even possible now. It seems beyond possibility. I assume you mean getting the woke out of stuff. It's possible because nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. Just because something is improbable, or unlikely, or has a small chance of happening, or isn't what people thought doesn't mean it can't happen. But like I said, it's the way we want it to happen is that they fire all the people that brought it in. I don't think that's going to happen. The way it's going to happen is that woke finally kills everything to the point where it has no more relevance and no more commercial value. Aside by Crom, I hope that the folks who are going to make King Conan make it a policy to duct tape and send away and Uber anyone who invokes woke into the production. Couldn't agree more. I don't know if Schwarzenegger is going to be able to pull this off. Isn't he in his 80s, late 70s, 80s? I'm not sure. Let me look up. I'm not sure how old he is. So let me hasten to say, if anybody could pull it off, he could. Okay, he's 78. Yeah. If anybody could pull it off, he could. But I don't know. I don't know if this is the right move to go. I think maybe these movies should have happened because he's coming back to Conan. He's coming back to, what is it, True Lies? I know he's not coming back to Terminator, but maybe he would. I don't know. These movies should have happened 20 years ago. But if anybody could pull it off, he could. But I don't want to see him doddering and teetering and old and unable to do what he used to do. I don't want to see that. Better to go out on a high note than to stay so long until it hurts, until you cringe, until it hurts to look at you. But I agree right here that if anybody tries to bring a drop of woke into the Conan remake, just send them away. We don't need that. Fugitive, I've been getting Zendaya fatigue. I think it will tank. I've had Zendaya fatigue for a while. I don't understand her popularity, but I'm not the target audience, so I don't have to. And I'm not saying it's wrong, so don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I said was that I don't understand it, because I don't. I don't understand what's so special about her. Does she have a look? She's not the only person with a mixed look. I don't understand. Maybe it was the show she was on. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't get her raging popularity. But yeah, it's fatigue. She don't need to be in everything. I didn't hear anybody have anything good to say about her performance in Dune or Dune 2. Did nothing that she did in Dune seem to be noteworthy. So having her do this is not gonna do anything except tank. There have been a few recent non-woke remakes to Running Man, for example, but lately efforts to mine past properties seem to come with a prerequisite of making the main characters woke. That's right. So men bad, so we have to bash men. White men bad, we have to bash white men. All the men in the show are incompetent. We have to replace the men with women. The women are the soldiers, the fighters, the thinkers, the saviors, whatever. And the men are the dudes in distress. And everybody is Asian and black and Indian and indigenous. But ain't nobody white no more. And also, everybody gay, lesbian, bi, trans. So, like I said, that's still here. I should be open-minded and watch some things. I take it all back. I too cannot bring myself to watch any Starfleet Academy. Alex Kurtzman has no idea what made the original series a hit. I think he does. I just think he's riding counter to that for spite. He's a smarmy little man. I keep telling you, we all went to high school with somebody like him. He's a smarmy little man who probably didn't get the attention that he wanted or got dissed by Regina George and got put in her burn book. He's been mad about that ever since. And so now that he's in a position of power, this is his strike back. This is his clap back. That's a smarmy little man. You can see it on his face. That's a smarmy little man. So I think he does know what made Star Trek good, and he's on purpose writing everything against it that he can. But I ain't watching it either way. the bride being bashed heavily online while family members are gushing about it is a good take on the story. That's right. I told you what has happened. The effect of woke is that the bubbles, there are bubbles, but they're shrinking. And after a while, they have to collapse, but I don't think they're going to collapse until they've taken everything with it. When you make a movie that don't nobody like but you and your mama, when the only people are giving you good reviews on your movie is you and your mama and them, then maybe we need to put a little more effort into the movie or whatever. But that's what I'm saying. If you make a piece of content that don't nobody have nothing good to say about ever, you spend 90 million and you gross 3 in your opening weekend, is that a clue? Does that qualify for the Sherlock Award? I don't know. I could be wrong. Zegler remains insufferable. That's the exact right word. She yanked Snow White and the writers finish it off. I mean, losing upwards of $170 million for your flagship movie. I just want you to think about that. Snow White, the original Snow White, the one she bashed that came out in 1937, is literally the movie that built Disney. And that movie lost upwards of 170 million because I believe it was more. So at least 170 million because she shot off her mouth. But the movie wasn't good, but she shot her mouth off. One of our friends is a Disney fanatic, and she left so sad with the writers. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So the bubble is collapsing, but they're going to hold on to that little world that they live in until it destroys everything, is what I think is going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. Brie Larson can act well, but the Captain Marvel movie and character didn't seem to mesh well in the MCU. I hope Ms. Larson continues to excel in her career, but I'm okay with no more MCU Carol Danvers. Yeah, Brie Larson, in other contexts I've seen her in, that I've had more respect for her acting, but Captain Marvel was all wrong from the jump. But remember, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, didn't work in the comics. So why they keep taking these characters that didn't work in the comics, like Black Wonder Man, just appearing in just like 3 issues. So that's what they want to make a TV show about? And the Echo? I mean, why Kevin Feige, whoever was hell-bent on that, I don't know. But Captain Marvel never worked in the Avengers movies. She never worked in her own movie, and she didn't work in the Marvels to follow up with Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, and Photon, Monica Rambeau. Just didn't work. That happens sometimes. But I agree that Bree's got a little bit more to offer. But Captain Marvel is not going to be missed. She's not even going to be remembered fondly. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the Captain Marvel stuff you saw in the MCU. Are you going to remember any of it fondly? Just think about that. What's up, Eric? Good to see you. Probably too late for WB to pull a Batgirl and shelve the film for a tax write-off. Hope they don't lose money on it. Maybe Jason Momoa will help as Lobo in position for a solo film. I'm sure they're going to try to get a solo film out of Momoa. Because first of all, he was born to play Lobo. He said that. He knows that. We know that. We've been saying that for years. But he's still a draw. He's still enough of a draw to where if he makes a Lobo movie, people will go see it because it's him. And what's the proof of that? Aquaman. There's no other reason Aquaman made $1 billion except Momoa. There's no other reason. So do I think his presence in Supergirl movie is going to help it? Yes. Do I think they're trying to give him a spinoff? Yes. But I still don't think the Supergirl movie is going to do the numbers they wanted to. But I think it'll be a good springboard. Plus, Shimon likes to write characters like that. He likes characters like Lobo and Guy Gardner and his Creature Commandos and Clayface. Not Kara. Ugh. Yeah, people remember Lobo more as a Supergirl in the film. I'm calling that now. Yes. Much like Mr. Terrific and the Justice Gang were more the highlights in the Buttkick Man movie. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Lobo is most likely going to steal this film the same way Mr. Terrific did steal Buttkick Man, because Mr. Terrific wasn't falling out of the sky and on the ground and arrested and weak. He was the only hero in the whole movie, the only superhero that was super. And the Green Lantern ring is not a genie. Just want to point that out. Just another pet peeve I have with that insipid film. Am I wrong to want a Guy Gardner movie, action comedy, instead of a Supergirl movie, or even a Firefly movie? Really, the last film left them riders to the sunset well. Okay, there's a lot in those questions. Am I wrong to want a Guy Gardner movie, action comedy? I don't think so. I think that would go over well. Guy Gardner is not a character that I like, but that's just me. That doesn't mean anything. So that's just my personal preference, because I'm like Batman. I would punch him into the ground. Just one punch. That's how I feel about some Guy Gardner, but that's just me. I think a Guy Gardner movie would work well. An action comedy, I think that would work well. Some good action, some good laughs. I actually think people would enjoy that. So no, I don't think that's wrong to want that. I think a lot of people would tune in for that, to be honest. If they loop Guy Gardner into the Lantern show, I guarantee that's where they're going. I guarantee that if Guy Gardner is a hit on the Lantern show, I guarantee the next step will be to try to get him a solo movie. So no, I don't think that's wrong. Instead of a Supergirl movie, I really don't think Supergirl had a chance just because of who she is as a character. Or even a Firefly movie. Now that, I've talked about that before. I don't think that the Firefly reunion is a good idea because the actors aren't those characters anymore. I said this last week, and they're in a different stage of life. And without Whedon and Meneer, the writing's not going to be there. So it's not going to be the same. So I really think it's going to kind of crap on some of the best memories we have, because that was some of the best sci-fi ever back in the day. That's why it garnered such a cult following, because it was so good. I don't think they can catch that lightning in a bottle again. Hope I'm wrong. I don't think they can. I like John as a Lantern, but I think you have to establish how first with the mention of Alan Scott. I would watch Alan Scott. I love Alan Scott. I've always loved Alan Scott. I would watch Golden Age Green Lantern before we switch to Silver Age. I, in fact, said that last week. The opportunity we have with the Lantern show is to show every era of the Green Lanterns. If we had people in charge who knew what they were doing, it would start with Alan Scott and the Starheart. I, in fact, kind of wrote a treatment in my mind about what that would look like. Then move from that to Silver Age with Hal Jordan, and then introduce everybody else, Guy, John, and Kyle, and then all the alien lanterns. I mean, this show could run for a solid 5 seasons. Every season could escalate and raise the stakes, because the Green Lantern is a galactic core. Green Lantern Corps is galactic. So, I mean, there's so much potential here, but they don't know what they're doing. So they're starting with old drunk weatherman Hal, and trying to push John on us. And the opportunity here is to showcase every era of Green Lanterns. But they won't, so oh well. The nice thing is that viewers can always revisit the John Shea relationship in the animated series. Yes, if they watch the animated series. Yes, but those of us that watched it and love it, I'll rewatch it all the time. That's such strong rewatchability, rewatch value. I love it. So yes, that's the thing to do if you want to revisit that relationship, because Elizabeth Merced's Kendra and Aaron Pierre's John Stewart is not going to be the same characters in the slightest. Some people are digging the Lantern route as it reminds them of the show True Detective show. That's fine, but Green Lantern is not the character for that vibe. I agree. Who's the character for that vibe? The Question. The Question would be great for that. But They don't see it that way. Dr. Doom is misunderstood. Minimizing people's guilt for their actions is a cultural trend. Yes, people don't know how to deal with guilt and shame in today's world, so they try to excuse it or brush it off. Well, remember, for the last 10 to 12 years, we've had people screaming, don't judge, and you're shaming her. You can't body shame, you can't fat shame, you can't slut shame, can't shame. So they're saying you ought to be able to do whatever you want to do, and can't nobody say nothing about it. So if you're fat, can't nobody call you fat. Got to be body positive and body acceptance. And if you're a slut, can't nobody call you a slut, or it's no longer a derogatory term. So you got to remember, for the last 10 to 12 years, we've had an establishment in the culture of saying you can't shame, you ought to be able to do what you want to do, and can't nobody say nothing to you. I do not understand. I've never understood that. I didn't grow up in that kind of time. I'm not that kind of person. I didn't grow up in that kind of time. I wasn't raised that way, and nobody in my family is like that. So I cannot relate to this whole idea of having to pretend that you're something that you're not, or having to love everything you do no matter what it is, or choices without consequences, or choices without responsibility. I can't relate to any of that. I can't relate to any of that. Not a drop of it. So this whole thing of turning villains into misunderstood heroes, that's been growing for a while now. That's a part of woke, like I'm saying, and I'm tired of it. Tired of it. Let the villains be villains. Let the villains be evil. Let them have bad motives. One of my favorite examples of someone that they took too far in the comics, but it's still a really good premise, is Magneto. They took it too far in the comics, but Magneto is a really, 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 really complex and layered kind of character, because Magneto has two reasons to be full of hatred. He's got the reason of, everything that happened with the Jewish people in World War II, everything that happened with the Holocaust, and then he's got the hatred of Homo sapiens towards Homo superior, a hatred of regular humans towards mutants. So I'm not saying I agree with his methods, but I'm saying his hatred is fueled by completely understandable events. That's what makes Magneto such an interesting and compelling, complex character. They took him too far in the comics. In the movies, they took Mystique too far, and now she's a member of the X-Men, and she's leading the team, and miss me with all that. But anyway, Magneto kind of in his form of understanding where his hatred comes from and his Omega-5 level mutant power is incredible. If you understand Doom, you understand his ego. You understand how he became scarred and why he got in that armor. And that's tied into Reed Richards, why they're such rivals. We're not going to get any of that in these movies. None of it. What happened to bad guys and evildoers being bad guys and evildoers just because they are, right? Why do we have to justify or explain the villains? Right. The Joker is nuts. That's all you need to know. Boom. There it is. Simple. Seems rather simple, doesn't it? But this push, man, to make the villains just misunderstood. People are flawed, fallen. We need heroes who generally are virtuous, ethical, to give us examples. Are these archetypes unrealistic? Sometimes. But it helps me to have a Superman to look up to. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Jason. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said, and that's why there are superheroes. To give us something to look up to. Give us something fictional, but it serves as an inspiration to try to help us become better people. Absolutely well said right there. Well said, GM. That's almost part of the point of comics. That's right. That's right. The woke movement doesn't lift the underrepresented up. Not really. It pulls the good down. I will get off my soapbox now. Obviously, I've had too much sugar. You don't have to get off your soapbox. And Might have to cut back on the sugar, but you don't have to get off your soapbox because you're right again. The woke movement does not lift up. That's been the biggest psyop, that it was about representation and diversity and inclusion. No, it's not. It's about tearing down that which was good, that which was loved, because I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that even women don't like girl boss characters. Women liked all the movies as they were, which is why it's such garbage. The kind of ideology they try to spin what wokeness is about, because women love Star Wars, Indiana Jones. Women loved all that stuff, Star Trek, just fine. It was just fine. Women loved it. So who is the girl boss character for? It's only for people like Kathleen Kennedy, a self-insert character. She only wrote stuff that she would want to see. Kurtzman only writes stuff that he would want to see. Schmunn only writes stuff that he would want to see. Do you see the pattern? Do you see the pattern? That's the only stuff that they want to see. Don't nobody else want to see that. So like I'm saying, we can keep fighting a good fight. We can keep making our own content. That's what I'm doing. We can keep supporting content that we like. That's what I'm doing. But like I said, I don't think they're going to be able to fire them out. I think everything's going to collapse and become worthless. Then we'll have to rebuild a whole new entertainment system. That might be fun, depending on how long it takes. But all right, that's it for me today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching me live. Don't forget, I'm telling you to get my Survivalist book, The Times We Live In Now. If you have to shelter in place, if you don't have certain things in your house, this book is for beginners. It's not for advanced people. So if you're advanced, you already know what's in it. But if you're a beginner, I personally have been through a fire and a flood, if you didn't know that about me. I've been through a house fire, my apartment burned to the ground, and I've been through a house flood. So I wrote that book from my experiences. So I'm pushing that book. If you've never had any survivalist anything, then I want you to get that book. So I'll link it underneath this video. Thanks for Tony for saying this is a great show. And like I said, we have to keep fighting a good fight. We got to keep supporting content that we like and creating our own. But I'm afraid how this is going to end is like I said. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's a resurgence and a revival and good quality storytelling comes back. Really hope so. Okay. So we'll see how it plays out. So thanks again. You know, I love you guys. You know, I love your comments. You know, I love talking with you. I do this because I want to talk to my peeps. That's the whole point of being on social media if you're a geek. Because Twitter is the Comic-Con that never ends, right? All right. So I will see you on Twitter, and I'll see you next week, same time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm still thinking about changing my time. I might change it to late Thursday night if I can get more people to join. So if I make that jump, I will let you know. Okay? Thanks so much. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, because that helps out everything. And I'll talk to you soon. DT2 Comics Chat, out.